Hey guys, just before this video gets started, I wanted to let you know I have a new Instagram as well as Twitter. Darkness Tales YT on Instagram and Darkness Tales _ on Twitter. I'll leave them both on the screen as well as in links in the description below. So if you want to interact with me outside of YouTube, where I'm more likely to respond to notifications, go give me a follow over there. Alright, I guess we can get right into the story. It wasn't clean, nor pretty, nor romantic like things sometimes are. It was dirty, and I did it for money. It's not like it was illegal. If some blitzed basket case wanted a John Wayne Gacy 1942 oil on canvas or a Manson signature, he could have it, and I would sell it to him. Sure, in some states the laws are iffy, but as of today, the sale and purchase of such collectibles is kosher in most of Uncle Sam's great nation, which left me and other dealers a niche to fill. I'm done with it now, but it paid my way for years, put food on my table. I was in the murderabilia business, dealing in artwork, signatures, and artifacts owned by infamous serial killers. It was good for a while, being my own boss, making my own hours, paving my own path through life. Then I got the locket in the mail. The one I now know belonged to Millie McDuke. The small silver pendant mailed with no return address. Sent to me by the man who killed her. The man who's now coming for me. He'll be here soon, I can feel it. It vibrates through my bones like a coming storm. I've gone to the police. They took the locket and sent me packing. They don't believe me. I thought I could trust the detective whose name I'd forget. But I can't trust anyone. No one at all. Not even my cat who ran off and never came home. I'm alone. I need coffee. I'm scatterbrained in 4 days with no sleep. I'm looking at the blinds constantly. My house is small and exposed from where it sits on the grubby outskirts of a podunk Midwest town. My neighbors are cornfields and manicured lawns and Norman Rockwell families living on a clockwork routine. A suburban dream. A suburban nightmare. There's a stabbing pain on the fleshy walls of my stomach, and I know that means it's happening tonight. He's coming. I can feel it. And I'm right. I'm by the living room window when I hear the car growl by outside. This gives me pause. It's late, far past midnight. I crush myself down on the sofa and watch headlights sweep through the blinds, painting zebra stripes on the ceiling. The car stops just outside my house. The lights die, so does the engine. I'm not ready for this. My heart is picking up pace, easing into a steady ko-thump, 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 which is quickening into a machine gun fire that's more like thump, 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 thump. I hear the car door open. The vehicle rocks on squeaky suspension as someone unloads. The door shuts quietly. The someone is worried about waking the neighbors. I don't need to steal a peek through the blinds to know he's coming for me. Tonight is here. My little chicken wire gate squeaks open. His footsteps crunch up the gravel walkway. I check my phone. It's dead. I don't have a landline. I squeeze my eyes shut and listen as the footsteps get closer. The gun is so heavy now. I think back to the beginning, before the locket. Before the other things he sent me and the visions I saw when I touched them. Before the serial killer who's outside my front door. I think back to the very beginning. I was 17 when I sent a letter to San Quentin State Penitentiary and got one in return from Richard Ramirez, the Night Stalker. I wasn't a fanboy or an obsessive, just a high schooler doing a paper on the psychology of a serial killer. I figured it was only right that I get insight from a real one. Due diligence and all that jazz. So I mailed him, not expecting a reply. Dear Mr. Ramirez, what was it like terrorizing the streets of LA? Do you regret it? If so, why? Yours truly, a cute teeny bopper who's never kissed a girl. Mike Andrews. But he did reply. Unfortunately, his letter was rambling and mostly illegible mess that read like the inside of a crazy person's mind. I guess, in a way, it was. That said, it was signed and included a little cartoon of a naked girl. So instead of trashing it, I chased a friend's advice and tossed it on his brand new marketplace site called eBay. It sold immediately for $200 and thus began my career as resident murderabilia proprietor. That's the abridged version of my story. I'm not proud of what I did or who I was, but it paid the bills, and in this economy, that's more than can be said for most. It built me a nest egg that I doubt I'll live to spend. That's such a damn shame. I turn off memory lane and I'm back on my couch listening to footsteps outside. The gun is shaking in my hands. It weighs 500 pounds. I hold my breath. The footsteps stop just outside my front door. I can see the shadow of his combat boots beneath the jamb. His presence is suffocating. It vacuums the air out of my cozy little house that was once a home. Yes, it was a home, but is now nothing more than a tomb, a coffin, a final resting place. My mind can't help but wander to the locket and the girl who owned it. I hope he kills me quicker than her. It started in autumn, with the trees in a blaze of color and the air wearing cold fangs that bit through jackets and flesh. It was normal, boring and routine. I was shuffling through my daily dose of junk mail when I pawed over the white envelope. It was addressed to me in neat, painstaking block letters. No return address. I frowned and tore the thing open. I opened the envelope's mouth and a delicate silver chain slithered into my palm. It ran through a small oval locket, old but well loved, with the initials MM engraved on the cover. The fuck? I thought. I don't know any MMs, other than the candy. I double-checked the envelope, certain it was for someone else. It wasn't. It was for me. I remember the moment I opened the locket in startling clarity, like it's a snapshot that etched itself into the pink folds of my mind. It was evening, chilly but cozy, the way autumn evenings sometimes are. A slant of dying sunlight was cutting in through the kitchen windows. It made the locket glow, red like blood. I opened it. It sprang open like a bear trap in reverse with a crisp click. I was in my kitchen. It was small, done in yellow linoleum, white counters, and flower patterns I didn't much care for, but had been too lazy to change. Then the locket popped open, and I wasn't in my kitchen anymore. I was with Millie McDuke. I'm back on my couch with the gun in my hand and the serial killer at my door. He's pounding on it, trying to sledgehammer it down with his fist. It's so loud it hurts my ear. Bang, 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 like gunshots, like God beating down my door himself. Bang, bang, bang! I don't realize I'm crying until my vision blurs and my eyes sting with salt. Bang, bang, bang! He's calling my name, yelling at me to open the fucking door. I squeeze the tears out of my eyes. I think of Millie. I pray to God I don't believe in that he doesn't kill me like he killed her. I pray so hard, it hurts. I was still holding the locket when I watched Millie McDuke die. I told you about my kitchen, right? I was there, and then I wasn't. Then I was in the middle of an abandoned amusement park. It was dark, almost black. spare a little twist of moon casting the husks of forgotten rides in silver. I saw a knot of roller coaster track, one car stranded at the bottom of the loop, a Ferris wheel missing a basket or two, an overturned hot dog stand, its torn awning snapping in the wind. I was by the bumper cars, an encased concrete graveyard of dead cars positioned like they were abandoned mid-game, as if one day they'd announce the park was closing and it was time for everyone to leave. My lungs ached. The air was cold, sharp and cold, and I was wearing nothing but a t-shirt and jeans. I hugged myself and felt something dig into my palm. Millie's locket. It winked moonlight as I looked. Wham! Something drilled into me from behind. My legs went out from under me, and then I was slamming into the ground. I held onto the locket as the air was hammered from my lungs. I heard myself wheezing, felt myself drowning, suffocating on dry land. There was someone else there with me, also with the wind knocked out of her. She was crawling on skinned palms, leaving behind bloody handprints as she tried to get away. She didn't see me, couldn't see me. Her gaze passed over me and went right through. A silver chain glowed around her neck. She was Millie McDuke. Young and terrified. Maybe 20 years old. Brown hair hanging like sweaty vines over a pale and slightly doughy face. Wearing a torn summer dress that was hiked up over her bare ass. She was too scared to worry about her decency. Her frightened eyes scanned the direction she'd come. A little walkway hemmed by rides. But it was empty. Quiet. Abandoned. There was no one but us. I tried to ask her something, but I couldn't talk. And even if I could, I knew she wouldn't be able to hear me. We were alone. Millie let out a shaky sigh of relief. Then, he bled out of the shadows, stormed out of a little alley between two disused food stands. I couldn't see his face. Never could. He was masked in shadow that fended off the light. He wore greasy workwear, paint-spattered cargo pants, a threadbare Carhartt jacket, and combat boots that could crush a skull. Millie heard him, his footsteps crunching up to her. Her head whipped around so fast I thought she might have gotten whiplash. Then she started to shriek. Not that there was anyone to hear but me, and I was too terrified to move. Afraid that if I did, he'd see me and come for me next. So I pressed myself small against a filth-bespattered trash can and watched. Watched as Millie tried to crawl away on all fours. It was like a nightmarish vaudeville skit. She didn't get very far. The killer cocked his head, raised one work boot, and brought it down on the small of her back with enough force to break her like a porcelain doll. Crunch. I heard her spine snap like a twig. I've never seen someone fall the way she did when he broke her back. It was instantaneous, like a marionette with its strings cut. She just collapsed, flopped down, limp as a sack of flour, like he threw a switch, her off button, and she was no more. But she was still alive. She was moaning. It sounded like evening wind cutting through an old house, a deep sigh that sounded so very wrong. Her eyes were wide and roving, bright with terror and pain. The killer swooped down, grabbed her by the neck in one of his thick, calloused paws. He lifted Millie McDuke's ragdoll limp body clean off her feet. He held her out in front of him. She didn't struggle. Couldn't. Imprisoned in her own body. I think she might have been trying to scream, but the wires in her brain were crossed, so instead, it was something that might have been a chuckle. An awful, agonized chuckle. Then he squeezed down on her throat, which stood no chance at all. It was like an industrial vice bearing down on the fragile neck of a puppy. She turned purple, her eyes bulging out of their sockets. Then bone crackled. I saw her neck crumpled down beneath his fingers, like an empty soda can. Now Millie did scream. Tried to, at least. It came out as a terrible high wheeze, like she was trying to shriek with a blown vocal box. Something flashed silver in the moonlight, which I thought might have been her locket, the one I was still holding in a death grip. But it wasn't. It was a long, ugly knife with the killer produced from his jacket. He sheathed it hilt deep in her belly and wrenched up. I'll never forget the sound. A wet, ripping noise as her stomach unzipped and a hot splash of viscera hit the ground. Then he released her. Her body flopped, yes, flopped, to the concrete. Hit the ground with a limp, sickening crack. Her head was rolled back at a wrong angle, and she was looking at me with those wide, aware eyes. Not through me, but at me. Then she died. A broken pile of pain, and the scene evaporated into a cloud of smoke. I was back in my kitchen. I was screaming. I'm on my couch and I bite down on the ball of my thumb to jam back the scream rising in my throat. The banging on the door has stopped. Now there's another sound. One that's worse. The scrape of a key entering the lock. The click of the bolt being thrown back. I raise the gun at the door. I force air into my lungs, force back the hammer on the big revolver, and watch as my front door yawns open. A square of rusty light from my porch expands on the wall. It's marred by his shadow. His boots, jacket, pants. He's here. I think back to the weeks that followed the locket in the mail. I went to the police, was slammed into an interrogation room and questioned until I was dizzy. They wanted to know how I knew what I did and where I'd gotten the locket. I told them. They didn't believe me, at least not about what I'd seen. The man I'd seen, the Midwest maniac, had already been in the press for Millie's murder, and the details of her demise had leaked like water through a sieve. But one detective did believe me. A big black fellow who reminded me of some famous actor. Handsome, square jaw, tight haircut, wore his gun on a shoulder holster, like those old gumshoes from black and white flicks. I liked his eyes the most. They were warm. They said, "I believe in you." But he couldn't help me, and in the end, I was sent home with my tail between my legs. Then I got another letter. Same neat block penmanship addressed to me, no return address. Inside was a wallet, a woman's wallet, one of those long leather ones. I dropped it to the floor and ran to the phone. The detective came, the one I liked, took it from me and said I did good. Said he'd post some men outside my house for a while. But he never did. I stopped trusting him after that. There was one more letter, came last week, sandwiched between a coupon for Panera and an ad for the local Walmart. This time, I didn't call anyone. I tore open the letter and looked. Inside was a little scrap of paper. It was a picture of me torn out from my high school yearbook. Bad haircut, fashion victim, innocent smile that the real world would later grind out. I couldn't bring myself to touch it. Couldn't bring myself to watch what it might show me if I did. I don't know who he was, why he was targeting me. Maybe I'd sold him something and he thought I might appreciate the mementos. Maybe he saw my website and figured the same. It doesn't matter now. Now, nothing matters. Because he's here. The last few days were a blur of caffeine and paranoia. I fast forward to tonight. A pawn shop revolver in my shaking hands and a snot drying on my upper lip. The door creaks open, and the killer steps into my house. He's calling my name in a rumbling baritone that reminds me of an avalanche. He eases in through the door, pauses to look around. I aim center mass and squeeze the trigger. It doesn't go at first, it sticks, and then it slides home with a click, and I launch a bullet through the barrel. Thunder booms and lightning cracks. My elbow snaps back and the gun kicks skyward. I hit the Midwest maniac in the chest and drive him back. Blood mists the wall. He groans and hits the floor with a bang. I suck air and aim at his head. I fire again. His body jumps as if his head erupts, spraying a big banner of gore across the wall. The room is choked with gun smoke. Once it settles, I look at his body and wonder where his head went. Oh, it's dripping down the wall in fat red curds. Brain and hair and torn flesh. The room stinks of copper and gunpowder. Blood crawls across the floor, so dark it's almost black. I'm crying now. Crying and laughing. It's over. It's finally over. I force myself off the couch. My legs have never been so heavy. There's a dull ache in the pit of my shoulder, and my wrist is screaming from the revolver's blowback. I don't care. My heart stops. I stare at the body, the man I killed, whose blood and brain is drawing on my wall like modern art, who I thought I could trust, who's wearing a now ruined suit. It's the detective. My spare key is in his hand, the one I gave him when he said he was posting men outside my house. I look at him for a while. Then I hear sirens on the horizon. They sound like squawking birds, I think to myself, as I grab my suitcase and run. I'm in a motel now. I won't tell you where, but it's a dump. A prison more than digs. The industrial carpet is crusty and smells like mold. The wallpaper is nicotine-stained and curling at the edges. There's a crack on the ceiling above my lumpy bed and a graveyard of bugs in the buzzing light fixtures. The TV has been here since Reagan was president, but it gets the news channels and there's only a little fuzz. I'm wanted now. I'm wanted by the cops, who I thought I could help, and the killer, who I know is still out there. Then there's a knock on the door, and I jump out of my skin. I level the revolver, almost blow the door to Swiss cheese. But I wait. I hear shuffling outside, then an envelope is fed through the bottom jamb. A letter is fed through the jamb. It slithers into my room like a little tongue. My heart stops. I can't breathe. I can't blink. I stare at the door until my vision blurs. 5 minutes pass. I'm encased in lead, glued to the bed. I scrape myself up and peer through the blinds. It's night. The cracked asphalt lot is mostly empty. 1 or 2 junkers scatter the L-shaped motel. I see my car parked in reverse in the nearest spot. Parked that way so I can dive in and drive. There's no foot traffic, just the passing headlights of a truck on the interstate. I fix the blinds, taping them to the frame the way I've been doing it. Every fiber of my being is screaming to take a match to the letter, to watch it crumple and burn in the trash bin. But I don't do that. I snatch the letter and shred it open. I look inside and start to cry.